Welcome back. A year ago, news of congestion in the US West Coast ports hogged the headlines, with some vessels waiting for more than 3 weeks to dock at the harbour. But the situation has turned around. The Port of Los Angeles, the busiest in America, has whittled down the backlog of ships by nearly 90%. According to latest data, it processed more than 930,000 20-foot equivalent units in July. That's a record. In fact, it has set new monthly records in 5 out of 7 months this year. I'm delighted to say Jean Seroka is with us this morning, Executive Director at the Port of Los Angeles, and joins us live here at the SGX studio. Pleasure to see you, Jean, and I hope you had a safe trip over here. Let's start with the supply chains. Do those numbers that we referenced there earlier suggest that the worst of it is over? And what are the lessons learned from this profound supply chain shock?
Good morning, Sri. And yes, I would say that the worst of it is over. Battling with COVID day to day in our workforce across the transportation segments. We've been averaging a peak season month every month for 2.5 years. That's put a lot of stress on many parts of the system and that great talent that moves all the cargo. What have we learned? 2 things. The need for information, aggregated data that can predict what the supply chain is going to look like so we can prepare land use, machinery, and the workforce to carry this cargo. And the second thing is velocity. Port of Los Angeles and others like it were meant to be transit centers, not warehouses. If we can keep that cargo moving to work the next ship quicker, we do a lot more in the efforts of supply chain fluidity.
Let's talk about the fundamentals, because we could be looking at a pullback, some softening in throughput in August. How sharp could that be, Jean, and could it be a prelude to perhaps a deeper slowdown?
Yeah, August will look a little soft. It'll probably be down about 10 to 12% compared to the all-time record we set just last August. And the reason is pretty straightforward. Those one-time buys that many American consumers purchased during COVID and work from home won't be repetitive. Think of the large appliances, fixtures for bathrooms and kitchens, furniture, that house table or couch that you buy once every few years. Those won't be repeated. We've been saying since the beginning of the year, those segments, once inventory levels reach a certain point, will moderate.
So does this imply, when you consider where we are in the cycle, does this imply that it's full steam ahead in terms of investment, whether it's in data to manage the flows, investment in people? Are you hiring more, or are you starting to think about even a hiring freeze if the fundamentals of the economy are looking a little bit shaky and recession may be on the horizon?
Yeah, the investment must continue in 3 sectors. The data, as you said, national initiative now with the Department of Transportation in bringing all of the worthy people together to share information. Second is the infrastructure with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and now the Inflation Reduction Act has given confidence to the private sector to invest. And the third is around the people. With still 10.7 million jobs open nationwide, the supply chain businesses are competing with other sectors for that talent. We've got to be a little more aggressive than we've been in the past.
When you consider what's happening in Europe and China, looking incredibly vulnerable, those 2 respective economies, what's the likely spillover on the Port of LA?
Well, there are so many data points across this economy that it's very difficult to pinpoint one area. We're seeing the highest inflation in 40 years in the United States, but record employment, and those job openings are part of that as well. While the PPI is high at 9.8%, we're seeing the rush to goods getting to manufacturers on those factory floors. So watching this closely, especially with the Fed's hawkish comments last week,
yes, we'll
have to keep an eye on many areas of this economy with respect to the data points, but we got to continue moving forward even in the front of the 8.5% inflation.
Tighter policy and tighter financial conditions, Jean, what does it mean for the Port of LA?
Well, being a leading indicator for the U.S. economy, watching these upstream inventories will be very important. The cargo coming in the weeks and months ahead looks different than what's on the ground today. It'll be more of the seasonal products and the year-end holiday goods. The inventory levels that have been pretty high from American retailers are starting to move out, albeit at discounted rates. I think we'll wind up at the end of the year in a top 3 calendar year for volume at the Port of Los Angeles.
You've got to love these manufactured shopping events that are around the corner, right? We've got Cyber Monday and Black Friday, and then, of course, Christmas coming up in the holiday season. Have you got any kind of leading edge insight, Gene, over A, how supply chains are going to hold up in that kind of environment, and B, what sort of demand is likely?
Yeah, there's a tale of two supply chains right now.
Right.
As you rightly said at the beginning of this conversation, the Port of Los Angeles looks better than it has in about a year. Cargo is moving off the terminal tarmacs very quickly. Our dwell times have decreased. But you have seen a shift of cargo in the Trans-Pacific moving to the east and Gulf Coast of the United States, where there are container ships sitting offshore waiting to be worked and have that cargo move into the domestic economy. That will have to be smoothed pretty quickly in order to meet the challenges of the holiday season. I think the American consumer, with their savings and their propensity to buy, will continue through the balance of this year.
Good to hear, Gene. We'll leave it there, sir. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today live in the studio for a nice change. Gene Seroka, the Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles.